was blown away on Facebook looking at different people that I didn't know they knew these people. So things are going on, and I like to call it more this. I tell the board this a lot when stuff starts happening in the church and people start gossiping, they start fighting, they start, calling each other names, whatever the thing or things are. I'll come to them and say, well, we need to pray. We've got a spiritual battle going on right now. And I look at all these accidents, these tragedies, these overdoses, all these things, and I go, there's a spiritual battle going on, trying to kill our young men and women. That's our future. And I'm a little different than a lot of you all because I spent almost 15 years as a youth pastor. That's all I did was teenagers. And so I got into the habit of praying for our young people. I still do it now, even though I'm not the youth pastor here. But we need to take that really serious because all of us are getting older. I hate to throw that out in the sermon, but every day I wake up, I'm a day older. And the older we get, we're supposed to pass the torch, the baton off to the younger generation behind us. But if we're not praying, if we're not reaching out to them, if we're not sharing the gospel to them, if we're not sharing the light that's inside of them and they go, the question I ask you is, who's going to come behind us? And so we need to be praying for this generation. I want you to turn to your Bibles this morning to Ephesians chapter 6. Now this is hard for me. I don't know if I've ever preached in a ball cap. And I know many of you, if Kent was here, Kent would say, amen, Pastor, preach every week in a ball cap. But you got to understand, I grew up in the Nazarene church where we were super conservative, super legalistic, and this whole outfit, I would get kicked out of church. And even though I've been in the assemblies longer than I was in the Nazarene, sometimes those, just a few weeks, or last week, I was working on the roof for the last 2 days, and I was just beat, I was tired, I was hot, and I was getting ready for Wednesday night service, and Pastor Amy said, why don't you just wear shorts tonight? And I had shorts on, and I said, okay, I'll do it. About 5 minutes before we had to leave, I said, hold on, I ran upstairs and I put jeans on. And she looked at me and shook her head, and she said, you can't let go of it, can you? And I said, I'm trying. I'm trying way more than what I used to be. But that's why I have a hat on, if you're wondering. It's for this message. So I want to read starting in verse 10. Chapter 6. Ephesians chapter 6, sorry. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 10. A final word. Be strong in the Lord and in His mighty power. Put on all of God's armor so that you will be able to stand firm against all strategies of the devil. I want you to remember that, highlight that, mark that, write it in your notes. Stand firm against all strategies of the devil. For we are not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against mighty powers in His dark world, and against evil spirits in the heavenly places. Therefore, put on every piece of God's armor, so you will be able to resist the enemy in the time of evil. Then after the battle, you will still be standing firm. Stand your ground, putting on the belt of truth and the body armor of God's righteousness. For shoes, put on the peace that comes from the good news, so that you will be fully prepared. In addition to all these things, hold up the shield of faith to stop the fiery arrows of the evil one. Put on salvation as your helmet, and take the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God. Pray in the Spirit at all times, and on every occasion stay alert and be persistent in your prayer for all believers everywhere. I just want to point out one thing that's not in my message, but God just really, I felt like He underlined this for me. For we are not fighting against the flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world. The reason I believe the Lord wants us to see this morning is there's a lot of fighting going on in the church. There's way more fighting going on in the church than there's going on in the world. And we should be standing against the evil one and not against flesh and blood. That's why, have you ever been at a church where, You know, you had the one person that was the loud mouth, always starting fights, always trying to get people against people. And you go, Pastor, if we could just get so-and-so out of the church, our church would be better. And so everybody, you know, pushes against this person and alienates them and gets them separated, and that person says, I don't feel welcomed here, I'm going to leave. And then they leave. And everybody goes, yay, our church is going to be great. No more fighting, no more arguing. Right? That's how we feel. But then all of a sudden somebody else starts complaining and murmuring and fighting and getting people against each other. You know, sometimes as human, we're not the brightest people. We'll go, Pastor, I know we got rid of so-and-so, but we've definitely got to get rid of this person because they're causing problems again. And our church was great until they started talking. And we get them kicked out. And it just becomes a revolving door because God didn't intend for me to fight against His children. He wants me to fight against the evil one. So something should be, you know, light bulbs should be going off when we go, God, we got rid of so-and-so and it was good for a minute. Now we got rid of so-and-so and we're still struggling. He's probably saying, you're not focusing on one. You're focusing on people. And the scary part is this. You need to walk very, 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 very carefully if you think it's okay for you to come against one of God's children. Because there's not a lot of things that angers God that gets Him to turn His hand of judgment upon us than when we start attacking His children. Now, I'm a Christian man. I'm not perfect. I got flaws. Many of you have seen many of my flaws. But I try my hardest. I don't beat people up anymore. But there's going to be a huge, and I got a feeling I probably wouldn't be successful if one of you all tried to come against my kids. And I don't care who you are, how big, how strong, how ugly you are, I'll probably hit you. That's the father in me wanting to protect my kids. Now, I would ask for forgiveness later, too. I say, God, forgive me, heal them. Give me grace. But isn't that how we are as parents to our kids? So what do you think it is to God when somebody's given their life to Him and they're struggling the same way you're struggling to try to live out this Christianity, and you start going, Francis, come here. Francis, come here. Francis, come here. Oh. I wasn't speaking Spanish, was I? Francis, come here. You see that lady that spoke about her son in the back? She should have never worn that church. Can you believe that she would? Yeah. Is that not how we do? Yeah. We don't ever go to the woman in the polka dot dress and say, Kim, I just need to tell you this. No, we'll get everybody else's opinion. I'm not gossiping, Joe. I just want to know what your opinion is about this. Don't you think it's wrong? That's how we cover gossip. We just kind of rename the different things. Prayer requests.
I've heard gossip say, it's not gossip because it's true.
Right. Let me know where that's at in the Bible. Exactly. But we're not fighting against one another. And the enemy has done such a great job in the American church to make it where we justify about everything we do. And even if somebody comes and says we're gossiping, we'll say like what Pamela said. Oh, it's the truth. It's not gossip, it's the truth. It's gossip if you're not talking to the person. And it's still gossip even if you talk to the person after you talk to 20 people. You're not correcting the wrong by doing that because you still sin. That wasn't any part of my message, but I just felt like the Lord was saying we need to touch base on that for a minute. I wanted to talk to you this morning about 3 battlegrounds. We kind of briefly started in this last week, but just due to time, having Roger Smith. How many of you enjoyed having Roger Smith last Sunday? I believe God's going to give us more opportunities to do more things with Roger Smith. We're talking about a couple different things, and we had communion. It was a great Sunday last Sunday. However, just due to time, I wasn't able to get into this message, and I feel it's important. Many of you have probably seen the things up here, but I want you to know, I'm not saying this to discourage you. I'm saying this to help you, because God brought this to my attention from my own life. And then he said, I want you to preach this to others because I want them to hear this and know that this is what's going on in their life. We are in a battle. I don't care how smooth the storm is right now, but you're in the eye of the storm. And when we're in the eye of the storm, there is no doorway out. It's all around you. And it may not be touching you right now this second. You may say, Pastor, you don't understand. Everything's peachy and perfect in my life. At some point, it's going to rear its ugly head up in your life, and you're going to be fighting these battles. So the first battleground is the battleground of the mind. I've spent about the last 2 months on YouTube watching different things about soldiers, about war in Afghanistan, about veterans. They say about 23 veterans a day commit suicide because of no help. And I've heard soldiers say that they can walk into a room and tell another soldier, even if they're not in their uniform, that just something sticks out. And so I was watching these videos of these soldiers that were wanting to be the lead of the lead. And I can't remember the name of what they call the process that they have to go through to become a Navy SEAL. Buds, thank you. And in the middle of buds, which can last anywhere from 3 to 6 months, I don't know what causes it to be shorter or longer, they have a portion that's called Hell Week. Now, if you're in the military and they say anything about hell, it's not going to be good. And in your life, if anybody says anything about hell, it's not good, right? So these guys go through Hell Week. I was hearing these soldiers say that they had already gone through it. They've already been Navy SEALs. They've already gone to war. Now they're back home as retired Navy SEAls. And they take that very, very personally. And talk to other young 16, 17, 18-year-old kids that are going to come in and they say, I've been taking cold showers every day. I've been, getting up doing 100 push-ups instead of trying to prepare myself for buds. And every single one of these soldiers said, don't do it. Why are you torturing yourself now? You're going to get tortured to death. You cannot prepare what is ahead of you. And they said it was really common in those couple hundred men that would enlist to become the lead of the lead, that usually the quickest ones that dropped out were the men that were really ripped. They had the tattoos and all the muscles, and they'd done all these great things. Those are the ones that would ring the bell the quickest. And then their helmet would be on the ground as a quitter. And so this question got asked to these 3 Navy SEALs, very famous ones. Many of you have probably watched movies on them. Lone Survivor, Marcus Luttrell, he was one of them. The other 2, one of them was the one that had killed Osama bin Laden. And they asked these 3 soldiers, what would you do to tell young men and women wanting to come into this elite group? What do they need to do? And they said, all buds is a mental game. Doesn't matter how strong you are. It doesn't matter even if you finish first. Those things don't matter. They can break your body down very quick within the first week. It's your mind that they're trying to get to. And the men and the women that make it are the ones that somewhere along the path figure out that this is a mind game. They're depriving them of food, of sleep. They're constantly in cold water. They're constantly being tortured, trying to see what will happen when we actually get to their mind and we get past the physical. And every single one of them said it was the worst thing they ever went through, but if they had to do it all over again, they would do it. Because they got to see what was going on in their mind. And many of the ones that said, I'm going to make it, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, were the ones that quit. Because what happened is in that first week, they destroyed their bodies. And found out that even though they had big muscles and on the outside it looked right, they found out that their mind was very weak. It wasn't ready for battle. Because these men are the ones that get sent in first. These are the ones like Marcus Luttrell, who went 5 men in to do this protection, and 4 of them died, and he nearly died. Those are the ones that are being sent in. So you don't want somebody that, when it snows, when it rains, when you're not able to eat because you've been in a position for 2 days. They don't want them going, this isn't fair, I shouldn't have to do this. They want them to stay. Because there's a battle in our mind. And in the spiritual world, There's a battle going on in your mind. It doesn't matter how much you can flex your muscles to the enemy. He doesn't care about your muscles. He cares about your mind. And is it conditioned? See, because all these men and women that finally make it to the end actually found out that their minds were strong when they went in. They just never had to use it a whole lot. How strong is your mind? You remember that the location where Jesus was crucified was called Golgotha, which meant place of the skull. If we will be effective in spiritual warfare, the first field of contact where we must learn warfare is the battleground of the mind, the place of the skull. For the territory of the uncrucified through life is the beachhead of satanic assault in our lives. To defeat the devil, we must be crucified in the place of the skull. We must be renewed in the spirit of our minds, said Francis. We must be, Francis, I can't say his last name, I'm not even going to try. Starts with an F and it ends with an E, and there's a whole bunch of letters in between. To defeat the devil, we must be crucified in the place of the skull. I was thankful this morning because I wanted to use it as part of my message, and I had so many things going that I forgot. And when I came in this morning, Carol came to me and said, Pastor, where's the cross? And the cross had been setting up here. Many of you remember it was setting up there by my amp. And I was like, I got to take it out because I'm decorating the stage. And I took it out, forgetting that I wanted to use it. And I loved Carol's statement. She said, Pastor, there's something about seeing the cross. I love to see it every week when I come. And listen, as soon as she said that, I ran up and grabbed it. Did I not?
Yes, you did.
And I put it because of this reason, of this first point of there's a spiritual battlefield of the mind. We will never win the battle until we meet the cross. And I'm telling you right now, I'm kind of starting backwards. This point here, if we don't win the battlefield of the mind, the next two don't matter. Because you're already defeated. We have to find the cross. We have to make a place there. It has to become personal. I even thought, while I was carrying that cross from upstairs, it's super light. It's not a heavy cross. By any means, it's not the cross that Christ had to carry. But I thought as I was bringing it from upstairs, down the stairs, and down the hallway, into the sanctuary, that I was carrying my cross. That I was carrying what Christ asked me to carry. The question is this morning is, are you carrying the cross? See, there's the strongholds of the world. I'm going to give you a couple strongholds that go along with point one. There's the strongholds of the world. The first is the very world into which we have been born. The steady stream of information and experience that continually shapes our childhood perceptions is the greatest source of stronghold within us. So maybe you were raised in a very rough situation that has the potential to be a stronghold in your life. To say, I've always been the victim. So everything I go into, I'm going to be a victim. I've met people that would tell me that. They'd say, Pastor, it never goes my way, but I'm going to do this anyway. And I look at them and say, it's not going to go your way. Because your perception is that you have always been a loser and never a winner. And that can become a stronghold because when you come into church and the pastor says, God wants you to win, are you going to receive that and take that? You're going to go, no, he's always been against me. I've been impressed with Daniel because I know Daniel's whole story. Most of you don't know his whole story. And I spent about a year working on him, trying to get him to get his own place. And the very first thing I told him was, Daniel, if you get your own place, your spiritual life is going to grow. And I've already seen it in just a short couple of weeks that he's been in his own place. But I fought with him at the beginning because I knew he thought it was impossible. Because he even made this statement, I don't know if he even remembers it. But he said, Pastor, I've been praying for my own place, but nothing's happening. And I could hear the defeat in his voice. And the reason he had that defeat in his voice was because of the childhood all the way up to now, his life, the stuff that he has had to see and go through. Which many of us have never experienced the life that this young man has experienced. But something changed in him when he came to me and he said, Pastor, he didn't even tell me at first that he was beginning the process. But he came to me and he said, I filled out paperwork. They say it may be 3 to 6 months before I have my own place. A week later, he gets his own place. And what happened was somewhere, I don't know when it happened. You can go ahead and clap for him. That's great. But somewhere along the path, and I don't even know if he knows. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But something flipped in his mind to say, I don't want to be a victim in this situation anymore. Because I could always blame everything around me. And that's what you did. Because it had always been bad. Something happened where he said, I don't want to be a loser. I want to be a winner. I want to do different than the way it's always been. And now he's into something where almost every day that I pick him up, because he doesn't have transportation, he tells me, Pastor, it's like every time I wake up in the morning like it's a dream. Like I don't deserve this. But can I tell you, he deserves every single thing that he has right now? That's what God intended for him. That's what God wanted for him. He was tired of being a victim. And God has been speaking to his heart, his whole life, saying, it doesn't have to be this way. But some people get beaten down so long and get told something so long that they hold on to that. And that becomes the stronghold. I've watched people that put, here's the line of the pews or the chairs, and all I got to do is make that one step toward the altar. But I see the people just standing there like this. Like they're ready, they want to, but it's never worked. That's a stronghold that the enemy has put on you. He keeps reminding you of your past. I love the old, and this is going to probably kind of date me a little bit. I'll probably show my age a little bit. Most do. But Carmen had this song. How many of you remember Carmen? I love Carmen. Because we did it 10,000 videos of Carmen's songs because they were all so good. But he had this song and he would make this statement in it, and I loved it. He would say, whenever the devil reminds you of your past, you need to remind him of his future. So when you're in the battlefield, when that stronghold comes to you in the middle of war, you don't understand what I've been through, because the enemy is constantly reminding you of your past. Why don't you just take a moment and say, yeah, that's where I came from. It's not where I'm at, but that's where I came from. But this is where you're going. He'll shut up pretty quick and leave you alone. One of the other strongholds is our experiences, the things that we've been through, the things that we've seen, the things that we felt. Another stronghold is of wrong doctrines. I loved when Frances started coming to the church and she started asking me and Pastor Amy questions. Is this right? The place I came from was saying this. Is this right? I've heard of churches that you're not going to make heaven your home if you don't get baptized. Or you're not going to make heaven your home unless you or the statement they make is, if you give your life to the Lord once, then you'll always get to go to heaven. It doesn't matter how you live in between the now to the end. And there's so many people that they've got this stronghold of wrong doctrines in their life. It's always been taught to them. At one of our churches, this great man would come and he would sit by himself in the back. And I would go up to him every Sunday and shake his hand. He was a very nice and friendly guy. But one Sunday, I was just curious. Why does this guy he only come on Sunday morning, and he'd sit by himself, and then he would leave. He wasn't antisocial, because if you went up to shake his hand, he'd shake it, tell you good morning. But I found out this man had been raised as a Catholic his entire life. But he wasn't getting fed spiritually. He felt dead on the inside. And so he said accidentally, I didn't believe it was an accident, but he accidentally walked into our church, a Spirit-filled Assembly of God church. And when he was there, he said, this is what I need. But he still had this stronghold because he would go to Mass early Sunday morning and then come to our church at 10 o'clock Sunday morning. There still is that stronghold. He looked at me and he said, Pastor, I know I don't need to be doing this, but there's something weird if I don't go to Mass in the morning. That's a stronghold of wrong doctrine. The second battleground is the church. Now, I know that may sound weird to some people because you say, aren't we supposed to come here and be safe and secure? Yeah, but how many safe and secure churches do you know? How many have been shut up? How many are closed? How many, boards are over the windows? When I was a kid, my dad came to, we had a family meeting, and that was always scary because whenever we had a family meeting, it usually meant we were moving. We didn't have fun family meetings. He said, I want to meet with you guys. And we went in the kitchen, sat around the table, and he said, I think we're going to start a Nazarene church in Knightstown, Indiana. And even if you lived in Indiana, and I said Knightstown, Indiana, most people don't even know where that's at. On the east side of Indianapolis, in the country, there's hardly anything there. It's kind of like Ancona. And he said, God is calling me to open a Nazarene church. I didn't know about church planning. I didn't know about any of that. But he went to the Nazarene district office, and they found in Knightstown this old Baptist church that had been shut down. Literally boards on the doors and windows. And they gave us permission to start a Nazarene church in a boarded old church. So I know what it means when you say there's boards on the church, because I pulled them off. The church is supposed to be a safe place. It's supposed to be a place of building each other up so that as we go out into the world for the week, we can maintain. But the reality is that the church is a battlefield. Because many are coming in battling. Do your battles stop the moment you step through these doors? My choir teacher, I was in 3 different choirs in high school. She had this saying, and I always thought I'd use it in church, but realized it wasn't realistic. She had this saying, I don't care what you've gone through this week, I don't care how bad it is, I don't care the fights, all that stays at the door before you come into the class. I love that, and I thought, I'm going to do that for church, but the reality is nobody wants to leave their junk out at the door. They bring it in. And I do the same. There's a battle going on in the church. And if you're not aware of that, that's why we see boards on windows. We see locks on doors. The truth is, and this isn't promoted very much because it's not a rah-rah, clap, handshake kind of thing, but the truth is we close more doors of churches than we open brand new ones. My concern is why are we not focusing on why doors are being closed and just focusing on brand new doors being open? Because there's been a battle that's been going on. I want you to hear this portion. I wrote it out so I wouldn't mess it up. The other churches in our cities are not our enemies. We must learn to war against the illusions and strife, the fears and jealousies that are sent from hell to divide us. If Jesus is eternally praying for our oneness, John 17:20-23, then we must recognize that Satan is continually fighting against it. The devil knows that when we become one with Christ and through him, one with each other, it is only a matter of time before this Jesus-built church will destroy the empire of hell. I had the privilege of this week, I think it was on Wednesday, Daniel and I went to some food pantries to get him some food. And we were at Grace, and I had still yet to meet the pastor of Grace. And while I was there, I was looking around, and this guy came up to me, and he said, hi, my name is Pastor Chuck. And I said, I'm Pastor Aaron from Streeter First Assembly. And we both heard of each other, but had never met each other. And when I came to Streeter, I was really praying and seeking. I didn't even say anything really to the board at the time, but that I was wanting to start, what is the Monday night thing? It just slipped my mind. Celebrate Recovery. Because I had been involved in that ministry a little bit, and I was wanting to start it here. And as I was just getting ready to present to the board, I heard that Grace had just started this new ministry. And I got defeated and said, okay, maybe that's not for us. And then at district council this year, I ran into a lady that works with Celebrate Recovery and a bunch of other ministries. And I was telling her my situation, and she said, why do you think one church could do all the work with the city? And so when I saw Chuck and I was talking to him, I told him that story, and he said, exactly. We're as far apart from each other as you can be in Streeter. And he said, what if we're not reaching anybody on your side of town? He said, I think it'd be great, and I'll help you and support you, and anything you need, any information, anything that I can tell you, you just ask me and I'll give it to you. Because Chuck and I aren't in competition. And maybe you went there and had a bad experience and got right here, that's fine.
There's another one now that's in town on Oakland.
Yeah,
So that's doing program recovery,
okay.
and they take care of all the.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, but even that, even if all our churches got on board and said, we're going to do something for the issues here in Streeter.
Can you imagine how full it'd be?
Exactly, and probably still wouldn't reach them all.
Right.
So we're not in competition. I'm not going against Grace by doing a Celebrate Recovery or doing a ministry that reaches out to them. In fact, we kind of come hand in hand and say, hey, what do you have that I don't have, or vice versa? Let's support each other and see this thing grow. So I'm going Monday night and taking Daniel with me, and we're going to go to one of their services to check it out because he invited us to. And I want to see how it runs and how it works and see what God does here.
So you have one on Monday up north, the other one's on Friday.
What would happen, though, if my mindset was I'm in competition with Grace? How sad is it? This is the question that I ask myself on the empty church buildings. How many of those were in competition with one another and saw them as an enemy and not the friend? And maybe the very thing that they needed that other churches had that could have saved them, but their jealousy or insecurity or pride or arrogance and competition pulled them away. There is a battle going on in the church. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because time's getting past. The third battleground is of the heavenly places. When the scriptures refer to the heavenly host, we usually think of choirs of angels. We get this, really blissful kind of idea. But the word host in the Bible means army. So now let's read it like this. This is a battleground of the heavenly armies. That kind of changes it a little bit, doesn't it? It is here that the angels and demons wage their war for our cities. But take note of this. This dimension is currently enemy territory. Only according to the measure that our hearts is like Christ do we have the authority in the heavenlies. Only a citywide, Christ-centered church can display the power of darkness from the spiritual realm. We have to understand there's a battle going on in the heavenlies for us, for our church. I think it changes everything when we realize that we're not fighting alone. I know a lot of pastors right now, just had one recently, a good friend of mine, that has had to step out of the ministry because his wife didn't see the battle that was going on in her life and how many were fighting for her. And she felt all alone, and then she fell. And now he's working at Costco when he's called to be a pastor. We're all human in here. Let's take off the leadership hats and pastor's hats and sound leader and worship band and all that. At the end of the day, we all stand in front of each other as human beings. And we have to be very, very careful that we don't get this Rambo mentality. It's me against the world. I'm on my own. Churches do that. They say, you know what, it's just us. No, it's not just us. The heavenly realms are fighting for Streeter First Assembly. And if we could be reminded of that, think of what can happen. I know when Marcus Luttrell was on top of that hill before he had fallen down and had injuries, and an Afghanistan man came and rescued him. That even though he was sitting there alone and he saw his 4 friends, dear friends, killed, he saw the life leave them. And then he fell down that hill and rolled several hundred yards, breaking bones and puncturing his chest. But he said, even though while that Afghanistan man pulled him into safety in his home, The entire time he was there, he said, I know there's an army that's fighting to come get me. Totally alone. In a home of somebody he can't even understand their language, and they don't understand him. And he's trying to figure out, are these people just holding me till the army comes to take me as a prisoner of war? He had no clue that this man didn't like what was happening in his country and thought it was wrong. And he wanted to protect this American soldier. Marcus Luttrell said, I had zero fear and doubt that the army wasn't doing everything they could to come get me. What would happen in our minds spiritually if we said, I'm not alone fighting this? Even though I'm standing here by myself in a place that's really uncomfortable and unknown, but that there's an army that's coming to rescue me. How much longer would you fight? How much harder would you fight? How much harder would you not give in to the enemy's tactics if you knew it could just be with the next hour, the next day? The reason that this soldier could do what he was doing was because he went through Bud's training. And they conditioned his mind that the only time you quit is after the last breath has been breathed. You don't quit, period, ever. Stand with me this morning. I want to ask you, what would happen in your life if you allowed God to take you through Bud's training? And you didn't quit because it's hard. You didn't quit because it's uncomfortable. You didn't quit because it's something you've never done before. But you allowed God to form your mind. Marcus Luttrell said while he was going through Bud's training, there was only one time that he had the thought in his mind, I want to quit. And the sergeant, the drill sergeant, could see it in his eyes and knew something was up, and he came up to Luttrell and he said, are you going to quit? And he said, I don't know. All the other times he said no, emphatically no. He said, I don't know. So the sergeant looked at him and he said, do you think this is going to last forever? He said, no. And he said, do you think you can outlast it before it outlasts you? He said, no, I don't quit. And the sergeant looked at him and said, are you going to quit on this? He said, absolutely not. There was a place in this battle that his mind switched over and said, I'm not quitting. I'm not giving up. What would happen in the Christian faith if we had Christian men and women, teenagers, boys and girls, that allow God to take us through that kind of fight, that kind of training, to get to the place where we say, I don't care whatever he brings. I'm not quitting, even if it means my last breath. I thank God for a teenager like Stephen in the Bible that did not quit, even while the stones were being thrown at him. I thank God for Peter, who eventually caught it. Eventually his mind changed. And when his time came and execution was coming, he said, do not execute me the same way as my Savior was. I don't want people to even come close to comparing me to him. You realize that his thought process wasn't on quitting, it was on not wanting to be crucified like Christ. No quit. What would happen in your life if you came to this mindset? God, I know this isn't forever. It may feel like it right now, but I know it's not going to last forever. So I'm going to beat it instead of it beating me. How many marriages would change? How many relationships between mother and father and children would change? How many attitudes in the church would change because we chose not to quit? See, the truth is, in a lot of our churches, the reason we have the issues we have is people have already quit, they just haven't left. We think they quit when they leave. But I can tell you, in all of our churches across this land, there are quitters sitting in the pew every Sunday. But God's looking for an army that's willing to battle. Marlene, will you start some soft music for me, please? be opened. There's been so many battles just within our own country against one another and against foreign lands. That they would send soldiers out to places where I would watch videos of it and I would go, how would they know there's anybody there? It looks like a field. Over at Vietnam, you never saw the soldiers. You just saw rice paddies. And they would deploy 4 or 5 men to go out to these paddies because they know there's soldiers there. Because there was some sergeant, some lieutenant that was paying attention to things, and he could recognize this is where the enemy would come. This makes the most sense. So he was watching, and the soldiers were waiting for a command from their boss. And their boss would say, I want you to go to this field and protect it. See, those men didn't know the enemy was there. They didn't see it. They were just taking the word of their commander. And can I tell you this morning that our commander is saying there's a war going on. And he's wanting to send every single one of us there, but we just have to trust and believe that what he's seeing is true, even though we may not see it. So our eyes have to be open this morning. I want you to bow your head and close your eyes this morning with me. How many of you knew this morning when you came in that you were facing a battle? How many of you, after sitting in here this morning, have realized that there is a battle going on in your life? Raise your hand. The truth is every single hand should be held up in this place. Because the moment that we proclaim to the world that we are a born-again believer, warfare has started against you from that day. And that war will rage until the day you take your last breath. But God is looking at us and wanting to know how much of us are going to stay the course. We're not going to quit. We're not going to give up. We're going to be like Marcus Luttrell, who's standing there and he's at that pivotal moment in his life. And the sergeant says, do you think this is going to last forever? See, because when we're in difficult, hard, painful places, in our mind, we tell ourselves, I don't know why we do it, I do it, but we tell ourselves, this is going to last forever. It's always going to be like this. But the reality is, if we look back on our life, and it doesn't really matter how old or young we are, if we look back over it, we realize we went through so many hard things and it didn't last forever. So I'm telling you this morning, whatever it is that you're going through, whatever battle you're facing, it won't last forever. So don't quit. Don't give in. Don't give up. Don't give in to what the enemy is pressuring you with. Go to the Word and ask God to reveal to you the strategy to win this battle that you're facing. Because each one of us in here, our battles are all different. And we have to hear from our commander the strategy on how to win this battle. Dear Heavenly Father, I personally know of several battles that are going on in this place this morning. But I also know that there's many, many battles going on in here that I know nothing about. And I don't need to know about them. You know about them. And you're our commander, and your eyes are watching the battlefield. You're watching what the enemy is doing. And then you come to us with your command. You tell us to go. You tell us to do something. Like in the Great Commission. But do we trust our commander that what he's saying is true? The information that he's giving us is exactly what we need. So this morning, Father, first I pray for faith and trust in this place for you. That you've never let us down. I don't care the greatest commander that has ever commanded an army has had flaws and issues and shortcomings. But our commander has never made a mistake. Has never been defeated. So I pray for those that have been struggling this morning, that they would have faith and trust in you. And then I pray for those that you have given us the command to go to do. You've given us a great commission, but we set back in fear, not sure of what's going to happen or where you're going to take us. I pray that we would have faith in the command that you have given to us. That you're going to protect us, you're going to guide us, you're going to direct us, you're going to equip us with everything that we need for what we're going to face. But any time in that decision that we try to take over on our own, then the protection leaves us, and then we're vulnerable. And we're seeing that a lot in the church today. Christians that try to do it on their own with their own power and their own strength. But I pray that it would be imprinted on our hearts this morning that we can do nothing without you, but through you all things are possible. There's nothing. You say all things are possible. So battles that are raging inside of us can be defeated and won if we have you on our side. But then it becomes a question mark if we leave you somewhere along in the battle, or we try to defeat the enemy on our own. We underestimate how conniving he is. We underestimate the strategies that he's laid out before us. But God sees those strategies. He knows those strategies that are happening in your life. And if we come to him, he can reveal to us how to defeat them. So I pray, Father God, as we go through this week and as we realize that there's battles inside of us and that we have to have your help, we have to have your direction, your guidance. I pray that we would start hearing about victories in this place. Victories over battles that have been raging for years. Victories for battles that they didn't even know were going on, but they realized it through you talking to them that they defeated. Because that's what you designed us for. You designed us to be overcomers. You designed us to be on top and not the bottom. And so I pray that over our church, that we would be a church of overcomers, a church of people that are on top and not the bottom. That instead of looking at all the negativity, we would turn and look at the blessings that you have given to us that we didn't even deserve. So, Father, I thank you. I pray that you'd be with us this week. The things that come against us, Lord, that we would hear your voice during that time. And that we would never buy into that we're all alone. But that there's a heavenly host that is warring on our behalf. And we thank you and we praise you this morning in your precious name. Amen. Don't forget, Wednesday night will be Allie's last night if you want to come and see her off. 6:30 prayer, 7 o'clock is our Bible study time. So we hope to see you there. Have a great evening. God bless.